Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast, where it's two guys' take on life, liberty, and the pursuit of gravy, and you, the listener, are getting a degree in common sense. We are broadcasting from the Busted Nuckle studio right here in beautiful downtown historic Concord, North Carolina. I'll be your host, Biggun, and how about you? We've got a great show lined up for you, as always, but before we begin, let me introduce you to the second half of this flaky biscuit. That's right, I am talking about the pride of Anderson, South Carolina, but most of you probably know him best as the Silver Tongue won 2016's Honorable Mention Bourbon of the Year, the inventor of the Redneck Egg Roll. Give it up on old mic number one, it's Mojo!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, genders of all ages, you're listening to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. You can find us on our website at southernfriedphilosophy.com, our Facebook page is Southern Fried Philosophy. You can also find us on the Twitters and Instagram at SFP Radio. Our favorite place to connect is obviously when you listen to our episodes. That's how we know we're getting paid.
Give you $1.
Something like that. Anyway, go to iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, pretty much anywhere that you can listen to a podcast, excluding Azerbaijan. Maybe they can listen to us. Yeah. But yeah, just go there, subscribe, give us a like, a review. That's the most important thing is the likes, the reviews. If you review those, that kind of pushes us up in the old podcast algorithm things. That way people can find us easier. I guess we're probably listed under comedy. I'm not sure exactly why because we're not funny, but anyway, you can find us there. But we appreciate each and every one of you guys listening to us each week. And also our hashtag of the day is life is short. Let's have fun. That's our hashtag.
There it is. Just want to say thank you to all of our listeners, as Mojo just said, but especially our Patreon subscribers. Hey, I've said this before. We appreciate you guys listening to the show. It is free to you, but it is not free to us. We do have some expenses, like we just got a new laptop. Praise the Lord, because the other one was shot, and we couldn't do that without your all's help. So if you could please go to our Patreon link. There's also a link on our website, but patreon.com/SFP Radio. You'll find 3 levels that you can help on: the life tier, liberty, or gravy. Each one will get you different things, but we really need your help to make this thing get further off the ground. So please, please, please help us out on our Patreon link. I'm not too proud to beg, so please help us out.
In fairness, our former computer was what I used in 1986 to do Oregon Trail. Mm-hmm. So, in fairness,
the fact that it had Apple IIe on it maybe was the part of the problem.
The green and black screen.
But we really appreciate you guys, and thanks again to all of our Patreon subscribers. We want to give shouts out to our new listeners from Shelton, Connecticut, Kaysville, Utah, and Loganville, Georgia. Shout out to all y'all. Thank you for tuning in. We did have a Ask Us Anything question. The question from Mark Mills is, why is there Braille on drive-up ATMs? Good question, Mark.
Yeah. Actually, I've seen Braille gun owners pamphlets before.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that you can order a Braille. Anybody listening, that it's obviously sight impaired. We're not trying to make fun of that, but we're just like the logistics thing. I don't know if it's like a Disability Act thing that they must require this, but yeah, it's just like, the Braille on driving or the Braille on certain things where it wouldn't be accessible. It just kind of is confounding.
I did Google it. And
of course you did.
They're actually useful and are used by blind people. A driver with a blind passenger in the back seat would just have to pull up slightly ahead and allow their passenger to reach out. You can use the ATM on that transaction. So there you go.
I think once again, it's kind of like the Disability Act thing. They're probably required to.
Maybe. But it'd be, you don't expect the driver to be visually impaired. But, the passenger could.
I don't know. I drive with my wife ride with my wife all the time. She's may not be licensedly visually impaired, but she don't see stuff coming sometimes. So.
We almost didn't. We didn't see that black bear coming on the street.
That was crazy, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you like I ask you every week. Mojo, how you be doing?
I am still recovering. I guess it's my age. I guess I don't know.
I'm getting too old for this.
Oh, I know. So a little context. We took Biggun here, biggunsbourbontours.com, soon to be showing up on the website. But Biggun and his wife planned us this most extraordinarily prepared weekend. I mean, you're talking about professional tour. Jesus.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm just got to brag a little bit. Okay. We're going to brag about this a couple times. But man, we hit up. We saw more attractions than I've seen at Disney World. I mean, it was just nuts.
Sure.
Like me, if I planned a bourbon trail, it'd be like literally one distillery, and I'm like, I'm done. But no, we did it. So I'm still recovering because we got home from the bourbon trail. Then I had to travel 1,100 miles round trip to Cincinnati.
Good night.
Pick up a bike. And
you flipped it all right around and went right back.
Yeah, but next week's gonna be even busier, so it's crazy.
What?
But yeah, so I'm a creature of habit, man. I have my set routines in the morning. I have my certain things I do, and so being away from that, that creature of habit mentality. I think Tim kind of spoke to this too, as far as having some certain things that you do, and breaking the habit, man, it just takes me a while to get back into it. So I'm hoping by maybe September I can be back. I might be back into that thing. So how you be doing?
Yeah, I mean, you guys may have noticed my voice is a little strapped right now.
Were you cheering the NHL St. Louis?
Yeah. How about them?
Yeah.
Congrats to the Blues.
Yeah. First ever, right?
This is the only time I was like, hey, I'm a Blues fan. But I grew up in St. Louis, so yay, Blues.
That's the first time the Blues fans actually said they were Blues fans.
But my voice is struggling. I would say it's because I was yelling at all y'all for too long, but that's not the case. It's the allergies. It's that time of year, getting all that drainage. Dude, I could hock a loogie. If mucus was like an actual currency, I would be rich right now.
See, when I get the allergies, I have like the 1-900 porno voice.
I wish.
You sound like you just tried out for American Idol and like stranger voice. So you sound a little different.
It's all right. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Just bear with me. Should be back to normal in 2 weeks, so we'll be good to go.
2 weeks.
That.
All right.
There we go. All right, so let's go into some wacky news brought to you by Webmerized. If you need a clean, crisp website, go check out our friends at Webmerized.com/Webmerized.com. Mojo, you sent me this, and I can't get enough of this story. A drunk woman driving a toy truck on the road said she was training as a wrestler, South Carolina cops say. A woman was arrested on charges of being drunk. Well, that's yet to be determined. While driving down the South Carolina road on Monday, but she was driving a toy car, like a silver Power Wheels truck, y'all.
If you listen obviously to the first few minutes or a few seconds of our podcast, I'm from Anderson, South Carolina. So where this happened was in Walhalla, South Carolina.
Walhalla. I couldn't say it.
Walhalla.
Walhalla.
Yeah, Walhalla. We call it Hogwalla.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's about 45 minutes from my hometown, and this is the country.
Oh, this is it?
This is
behind the...
Oh, this is you go 30 minutes to BFE, and then you keep going.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it is, it's out in the country.
Yeah, Walhalla police said she was, quote, impaired behind the wheel of the toy truck. The 25-year-old woman, Megan Danielle Holman, said she was behind the wheel of this motorized truck on, get this, Playground Road.
Nice. Nice.
It was near her home, the incident report said.
But you showed me a picture of her. She's kind of low-key cute.
I mean... Yeah.
I think so.
No doubt. Like she if and we'll have this story on the website or on our show notes, but she kind of reminds me of, remember the girl that played on the Netflix show Son of a Biscuit, House of Cards. Remember like the
which
Kate Mara, the very first.
Yeah, kind of.
She kind of has that Kate Mara look to her. She's kind of cute.
She's ginger.
Yeah. Anyway, so she stole the truck.
She stole it
as part of a scavenger hunt, she said. And she wanted to, quote, be a professional wrestler like her father, and this is how to do it. I mean, could you imagine pulling that lady over?
Who's her father?
The report is unavailable on who Papa is. I want to be a wrestler like my father. Woo! Ric Flair. I mean, she was writing that thing probably like it. She was arrested for public intoxication. You think?
So she get DUI?
Yeah, but this is a little toy.
But I'm saying, so she got DUI. Did she get charged for stealing it also?
Oh, I don't know. It didn't say that. But this thing, by the way, is this toy.
It's like a Mattel Hot or Big Wheel, little rider thing.
It's like 3 feet long, if that. Like it's tiny, and the cops have got it pulled over like it's an actual car. Yeah. I love that.
Or if they did a full search of it.
No, what would they find in there?
No telling.
Like you think some goldfish? You think in the back? Somebody sneaking like
no one Walhalla, probably meth.
Do you know it takes a customer 3 seconds to decide whether to stay or leave your website? That's why a crisp, clean, and user-friendly website is one of the best ways to market and help and grow your business. At Webmerized Web Design, we offer that and much more. They pride themselves in offering their clients professional websites at affordable prices. Are you a small business? No problem. We can cater to small businesses by working with their clients every step of the way to meet their needs and expectations. Their number one goal is to partner with their clients to help and grow their business with a successful website. They work for every client, no matter the size. So if you'd like a great website, go to webmerized.com, webmerized.com, or you could check out their link on the sponsors link of our website. If you mention the word Biggun, you'll get 10% off your website design order. Again, webmerized.com. Check them out.
All right. The next one is, you think you got a bad ex. This woman was arrested for setting the fiance's house on fire 5 times in one day. In Hendersonville, Tennessee, a Hendersonville woman was arrested and charged with arson after the police said she set fire to her ex-fiance's house 5 times in one day. Nearly a 2-month-long investigation. Why did it take 2 months for this? The officers arrested 48-year-old Tiffany Hummel on Monday that said that she's tried to start a fire 5 times and stealing items out of the house. Finally, on the 5th try, she got it right and burned the whole house to the ground.
Nice.
Wow. 5 times.
Did they? How do they know she started it 5 times?
Well, we could go back to the month-long investigation on how she tried to do it.
2 months.
2 months. Sorry. Yeah. I mean,
is there 5 different spots? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like 5.
It's like this side of the brick house doesn't work.
Right.
This side of the brick house doesn't work. This side of the brick house doesn't work. This side of the brick house doesn't work. Oh, but like this wooden deck, that's going up real good.
Yeah, Molotov cocktail through the window. There you go.
I mean, I got to give it to her. You don't succeed once, you try again.
Anytime I hear like Jilted Lovers, I always think of TLC. You remember, was it the singer from TLC burned down Andre Rosen, the wide receiver from Atlanta Falcons, like multi-million-dollar house down. So anytime I think of Jilted Lovers and arson, I always think of those two.
But 5 times, y'all.
Yeah, well, she's persistent.
That's right.
So you got to kind of give that to her.
You think her next fiance is going to Google her name?
Well, I'm pretty sure she'll probably have it on her Tinder profile because I think you highlight the maniac in you on Tinder. Oh yeah. Have you not seen some of the Tinder profiles on?
I'm not allowed on Tinder. My friend.
I'm saying like the best of, like they'll have screenshots of like some of the best.
Snap.
Tinder profiles on Instagram.
I got to check this out.
Oh, you do.
That looks awesome. Yeah, sounds awesome.
Some of them are far left of what even like far left liberal
like
crazies.
You're not even on this planet.
I mean, like there's people that are like non-speciest.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like this person's 3 miles away from you. I'm glad to know that. It's kind of like looking up on the sexual predator website and find out you have several neighbors. I mean, you kind of want to see these people.
This is going to be a bit. We've got to figure out. It'll be like crazy Tinder profile of the week.
Yeah.
And we can.
Well, yeah, we can do that.
We got to get an account.
Tim's probably on there.
Tim's feeling good right now. All right, so let's go to some hot topics brought to you by Watchman Cigars. If you need an awesome cigar at a reasonable price, check out our friends at Watchman Cigars. You can check them out on the sponsors section of our website. All right, the Texas governor has signed a controversial Save Chick-fil-A bill into law. Have you heard about said?
I've heard of it. I have no clue what it entails.
The Texas governor Greg Abbott, which I think he played for the Houston, what's the Rangers? but I could be wrong.
I think that was a different habit. I could be wrong too. So.
He signed Monday the so-called Save Chick-fil-A bill, the new provision that supporters say defends the fast food restaurant and protects religious freedoms. Opponents have argued that it discriminates the LGBT community. It said that the bill is there to stop government from taking unfavorable action against a business or person for contributing to religious organizations. It was fast-tracked and passed. Some of the council members said that it was a good, while others say that it discriminated against them. Senator Jessica Gonzalez, a Democrat, said that the bill was a personal insult, given that she was openly gay. She says, quote, of course, the bill is aimed at me, about reminding me of those that are in power, that I should not get too comfortable. Basically, it's saying that the government cannot give unfavorable action against the business. So part of this stems from the San Antonio airport not allowing a Chick-fil-A in their airport because they contribute to what they say is anti-LGBT organizations. So overall, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not sure how Chick-fil-A discriminates against the LGBTQ plus community. I mean, honestly, I'm totally aware of it, and I may be hiding in the sand somewhere, but they don't discriminate against people when they come in. I'm pretty sure they don't identify by just appearance alone. So they don't ask you to fill out a questionnaire who you love, what type of person you love. So I'm not exactly sure how they discriminate. I mean, I know people who are openly gay that actually work at Chick-fil-A. So I'm not exactly sure what they mean by discrimination.
I think what they're saying is that the company gives to organizations that discriminate against LGBT. So they're not saying Chick-fil-A does it, but they give money to organizations that do.
Well, would that if you were to follow that philosophy out, okay, I'm sure the United States government contributes to Hamas vis-a-vis through contributions to certain hostile countries. I'm sure the United States government has contributed to Al-Qaeda via AKA Syrian rebels against the Assad regime in Syria. I'm pretty sure the U.S. government has contributed to doing experiments on its own people vis-a-vis the Tuskegee experiment with syphilis.
Sure.
I'm sure the U.S. government has contributed to a lot of things via tax dollars that have not been ethical. So should we write policies against our own U.S. government?
Well, even break it down even further. If you want to be consistent, look at Nike, look at Google that, have used children as labor or, have also contributed to other organizations that aren't so beneficial to other groups of people.
I think right now in this election cycle, any type of thing that we can try to pull out. For example, you remember Netflix? This abortion bill that just got passed and signed into law in Georgia. Netflix announces, and along with several other celebrities and top producers that actually contribute to Netflix, that they're not going to be able to film in Georgia anymore due to this quote unquote civil rights battle that's going on right now for women's rights in Georgia. But keep in mind the same producers, the same actors, the same studios, the same actresses, the same organization. Netflix actually films in countries where actually being gay is actually a sin, which is punishable upon immediate death. Yeah. So I think the hypocrisy only lends itself to the highest bidder.
Sure.
So I don't. These things are just political fodder for their own following.
Sure.
I guarantee you follow the money and also the who's up for re-election right now or election. It's just nothing but political fodder for their coffers and money raising. That's it. I mean, do you think this Patricia Gonzalez actually gives two craps about Chick-fil-A? No, she probably eats there. She probably eats the Chick-fil-A sauce and double dips it in Polynesian. I mean, she's a rebel. She doesn't care about this. This is nothing but to false virtue signal for her own people.
No, I understand. But if you go back to the law and saying, well, we can't discriminate against a company for giving money to some organization, could that potentially backfire on any organizations that says, well, I'm just going to give this money to, and I'm, left field, saying this is the Nazi party and they're my religious organization. The government has no recourse to say, no, you can't do that.
See, it's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope.
Just like, there was a Harry Reid passed the nuclear option to pass some legislation. Mitch McConnell, who is the slow ginning turtle from Kentucky, stated, "But please don't do this because it will come full circle." Mm-hmm. Well, fast forward 4 years, the policies that Harry Reid actually passed came to bite them in the ass of the Democrat Party when Mitch McConnell actually exercised the same right to pass certain legislation. Yeah. So I think anytime with laws or certain things that they try to pass or they try to use, it ultimately just comes back to bite people in the ass.
You remember the argument about the Ten Commandments in the school, like, oh, we can't, we want to put the Ten Commandments back. Well, if you put the Ten Commandments back, you have to put everything back. Like whatever anybody says, like, hey, I want to put Black Sabbath up. You got to put that up, so. I
wouldn't be opposed to Black Sabbath up.
So. I'm not talking about the band.
Oh.
I'm talking about like Black Sabbath, Satan worshipers stuff.
Oh, well, you got that too.
If you are in the market for a high-quality cigar for a very reasonable price, you must check out Watchman Cigars. Watchman Cigars is a family-owned business that puts the customer first with the best customer service in the business. Watchman Cigars offers the Habano for a full, spicy flavor, the Connecticut for a mild, easy-to-smoke option, and the Maduro for a strong, powerful experience. They even do specialty blends and partner with you to provide a custom exclusive line just for you. Watchman Cigars has all your cigar needs. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Watchman Cigars 1991 or email Leon directly at Watchman_cigars@yahoo.com. That's Watchman_cigars@yahoo.com. Or check out the sponsors section of our website.
On a more lighter note, Joe Biden promises that he's going to cure cancer if elected.
Oh, that's awesome. About time.
Hours after being called a dummy by President Trump. In a speaking engagement in Iowa, he said that, his son, Bo, died from brain cancer back in 2015. He's saying that he's going to do the most important thing that can change America. We're going to cure cancer.
Well, the cool thing is, I think he's got this going for him. Al Gore created the internet.
Right.
And then Joe Biden's going to cure cancer.
I mean, hey, if you're going to say something.
Yeah, you might as well try to hit for the, out of the park there. So,
in retaliation, Trump says he is going to assemble the Avengers. Take that, Joe.
He's going to find all the Infinity Stones.
Trump is on a quest for all Infinity Stones. Breaking news. All right, so that is our hot topics for today. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we've got 4 of the 6 guys that went on this Bourbon Trail trip. We want to do a awesome recap and kind of let you know what we found out. All that and more on this episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast.
Welcome back to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. So just to kind of give you some context here, this past weekend, we went to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. And I know we mentioned this earlier in the show, but so we went to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. We visited, how many distilleries now? 6?
7.
7. Ooh, I lost track.
We technically went to 8, but we didn't go on the tour of one of them. So.
Okay. So we went to 7 distilleries. We also went to the Churchill Downs, and that which was exciting also. So Biggun and Biggun's wife planned this trip and did a phenomenal job. I mean, it rivals my trip to Ireland as far as having as much content smacked into the limited time that we were there. So we got to see the beautiful countryside. We got to see these wonderful distilleries. I mean, I'm sure there's probably 82,000 more in Kentucky, something like that. I mean,
pretty
there's
close.
quite a few. But anyway, so Biggun drove us around the countryside of Kentucky, and he is truly passionate about Kentucky. It's a beautiful state, but I got to see more of the state this time than I ever thought I would, because usually you just see it on the highway, just driving through as fast as you can, trying to make it to the next state. So, so we did this. And so on our show today, we have Tim Sigmund, who has actually been on our show before several times. And we also have our new buddy, Jonathan Hayes, who's first timer to the show here. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
So 1 week ago today, we were sitting at a bar, but belly up, KSBar and Grille. Going to give them a shout out.
We just had finished our first tour.
Yeah, and then we met up with a good friend of the show, Tim Jones. I think he was on episode 78, or 96.
98.
And he gave us a bottle of Weller 107. So I want to say thank you so much to Tim Jones for hooking us up with that. That was a fantastic bottle to get from him. But man, we rolled in. We left here at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and from Charlotte, drove all the way in. And our first one that we went to was Town Branch Distillery, AllTech. Well, let's kind of go through the positives and negatives of each one.
Can we back up?
Yeah.
I think we back up a little bit, because I think that there's probably, look, I love bourbon. I've always loved bourbon.
Yeah.
I may have not been schooled into the craftsmanship of bourbon. I think that was one thing that we all, besides you, because I think you've been on the Kentucky, I think this one thing I can get, maybe that you, Tim, and maybe Jonathan, as far as the craftsmanship of actually what goes into bourbon. So if we can, let's kind of peel back.
Sure.
What makes actually bourbon?
Good call. Does anybody remember some of the things that made bourbon?
You know, I'm an Ethan Williams guy. I'm a cheap bourbon drinker. But I tell you what, I learned so much, and now I have been schooled by JT. He brought his game on a great trip, and each distillery gave us an education on what it takes to make a special bourbon. And as we went through the tours, distillery by distillery, you learned more and more. You built upon what each distillery told us, and we came out very educated on the science behind making a great bourbon. So that I thank you for, JT. You knocked that out of the park. I learned a lot. Awesome trip.
Nice. So what are the rules, Jonathan? Do you remember some of those?
A couple of them. It has to be aged for 2 years.
Yep.
Has to be 51% corn on their mash bill.
You said 51% corn. At least 51% corn.
Yes. Yep. And if it's not aged 4 years, that has to be noted.
Yep.
So if you're only aged 3 years, you have to have it somewhere on your label. That's what you're doing.
Yep.
White oak barrel.
It's got to be put into a virgin white oak barrel. American white oak barrel. So, and it can only be done here in the United States. Bourbon can only be bourbon in the United States. Again, that barrel can only be used one time. This is the first time. After that, it's whiskey. You can reuse that barrel, but at that point, it's going to be whiskey if you put the same stuff in it.
Right. Also, now you have the different types of bourbon. You have single barrel. Mm-hmm. So single barrel is actually bottled whiskey from a single barrel. Mm-hmm. Then you have special select.
You have special select, right?
Which could be maybe 5 or 10 barrels of bourbon mixed together, and then they have this single batch. Mm-hmm. You have small batch, which is kind of single select or whatever. Mm-hmm. What else we got?
Barrel proof. So whatever's in that, whatever the proof of that's in that barrel, that's what it's going to be bottled as,
right, and
shipped out. So one you can get, and I'm just taking for example, if you have like a Buffalo Trace, one of them could be 96 proof, the other one could be 107 proof. Right. Just whatever is in that barrel is what it comes out as.
But also, the just for the virgineers who may not know bourbon, but you have these huge facilities with rick houses that they build, which are these facilities that house these barrels of bourbon. And we're not talking about just a few barrels; we're talking about thousands of barrels at a given time. This liquor, this corn liquor, is put into these barrels. These barrels are stored in this not temperature controlled houses that are basically left to the elements. The bourbon moves in and out of this wood due to the temperature, the constriction of, the temperature, cooler, warmer weather, whatever. You have some evaporation, you have a lot of elements going on through nature. And that's what gives bourbon its distinct flavor from this oak, from the ingredients, the corn, the rye, the barley, or malted barley, whatever. So, and also the unique water to Kentucky that we got to hear so many times as far as the limestone, iron-free, water. So there's a lot of elements into bourbon making that's just different from standard like moonshine making. I mean, there's a lot of elements to it. But like Buffalo Trace, they go in when they decided to bottle Buffalo Trace or bottle Jim Beam. They do a controlled pull, from different areas of the rick house, and they blend it all together, I guess, into these patches.
Yeah, the master distiller will get, say, barrel number 1 from this rick house, barrel number 2 from this rick house. They'll mix them together and be like, okay, this is the taste palette that we're going for, and we got to mix these two in different volumes, and then all of a sudden you get whatever is in that bottle.
And I know we've talked about, we've had several podcasts about barbecue and smoke ring. You can tell the pride of a pit master with the coloring of the smoke ring on the meat. Yep. Well, the pride of a distillery is that kind of a red ring. Once they break a barrel down, you can actually see this whiskey ring, I guess. I don't know if they actually had a technical term for it, but you can actually see how far the whiskey has gone into the wood and came back out.
Yep. It's an amazing process to see, it going in and out of that wood like that and how far it goes in. Yeah.
Look, I'm telling you right now. I mean, I thought I knew about bourbon, but I learned a hell of a lot more on this trip. So
I one thing that I really liked was because we saw so many distilleries, it seemed like as the second and third ones, they mentioned a lot of the same things, and of course they had their own twist on what made them unique. However, for people who just don't absorb everything all at once, it really helped to kind of concrete that information. So by the time we went to the, fourth or fifth or sixth, right. I felt, as they were saying, I was like, I already know. But in hindsight, it was great to really, I feel like I truly know, about the bourbon world, I guess. And it really is that kind of, there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the term angels share.
Oh, yeah.
JT, you want to talk about the angel share term?
Yeah. So they said that they'll fill up about a 53-gallon barrel, and the angel share is what evaporates out of it. So that's what is given away to the angel share. And I think Jim Beam said that out of 53 gallons, now they're getting somewhere around 23 because it's been so hot in Kentucky that at the end of the day, when they're done with their aging, they're only getting 23. It's 4% for the first year, and I think it's more after that.
So, and also just an interesting tidbit, that angel share actually contributes to a thing called whiskey fungus.
Careful.
So if you actually go to these distilleries, and it's not like toe fungus, but if you go to distilleries,
I was thinking about whiskey, something else.
Yeah, maybe not. But anyway, you go to these distilleries, and the first thing we notice when you pull up is that these buildings have a distinct, they could be gray, but they have kind of like black, just tinge or whatever onto them. And we kind of came to find out after probably second, third distillery when someone asked a question what that was. And it's actually a natural occurring fungus that actually will mesh up to the buildings and everything around it, stop signs, cars, trees, basically due to this angel share that's being evaporated. Yeah. This fungus just loves it and just gravitates towards it. So
the sugars and everything and the alcohol that's being evaporated sticks to these trees, and then the whiskey fungus.
Interesting thing I didn't know. I always wondered how they made this Devil's Cut Jim Beam. So we got to kind of find that out. Jim Beam actually has found a process to pull the remaining couple gallons, I guess,
I think they said 2 to 3 gallons per barrel.
2 to 3 gallons of whiskey or bourbon that's actually trapped inside the barrel into the porous parts of the wood, that they've developed this process now where they can extract it, and then they'll add that back into some extra Jim Beam, and then they bottle this Devil's Cut. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they have figured out a process. And also just kind of note anyone any of our overseas listeners in Ireland or Scotland or England, these barrels from American companies actually now go to Scotland, Ireland to be used for Irish whiskey or Scotch. And I thought that was pretty kind of cool. And also to the Caribbean too for rum. Yeah. So these barrels are being used multiple ways. So
and I can add that after going on JT's trip,
the biggest bourbon tour,
JT'sBourbonTours.com is that believe it or not, I was in an ABC store today.
That's a shock.
I know, it's a shocker on a Thursday afternoon.
It wasn't Sissy's, was it?
It was not. It was Sissy's was epic, by the way. Well, JT will tell you more about that later.
Some of these stories that we'll not be allowed to share.
Man.
But you walk into a store, your favorite ABC store, liquor store, whatever, and you look at the bottles, and you now, after being on this tour, you realize what the terms mean.
Yeah.
Double oaked, single barrel, select batch, etc. You're now educated, and you're not walking into a blind purchase. You know what you're going to buy, and you know what you're going to get for the most part.
Sure.
But you know what the terms mean.
Yeah.
And that was very valuable information.
So those, I don't know if you've been back into an ABC store or a liquor store or whatever, but going back into those and seeing the different bottles now, does that give you a better appreciation of, wow, I know what this means? Or like you were saying, like, oh, I remember when we were at Woodford, and it brought back that memory to when you look at that bottle.
Absolutely, especially today with the Jim Beam double oaked.
Okay.
You know what that means. You know what they did for the process because they explained it to you. So that was good information.
Nice.
I also appreciate it too. Even the lower priced bourbons that you see, even with those, because of the regulations and the way they do things, there's still a ton of work that goes into it, and they take pride in the flavors they get. They have their own flavor profile they're trying to get, and so there's value more so now for me, even in the less expensive ones. It doesn't always have to be $100 bottle of whiskey to be something special.
Yeah, a good call.
Yeah, I think that's I think there's one thing in the community where if someone goes to a restaurant and they say, hey, I want a bourbon and Coke, and if a restaurant's pouring Jack Daniels, that's not bourbon.
Yeah.
That's Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah.
So you should expand on that, Brandon, by saying what the term is. All bourbons are whiskey, but not all
whiskey or bourbon.
Exactly. You want to expand on that?
Well, Jack Daniels. I mean, in my younger days, I enjoyed Jack Daniels too much. So, Jack Daniels is not aged that long. It's only aged for, I guess, less than a year. I think that's one thing.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't contain the 51% rye or 51% corn. There's several other elements that don't make it a bourbon. So I think that's probably one of the biggest wool that has been pulled over a consumer's eyes, because when you think bourbon, a lot of people think bourbon, they think of the old number 7 label. And that's been pushed. I mean, hell, I run a motorcycle shop or motorcycle dealership, and you can buy Jack Daniels memorabilia, and people associate the old number 7 with bourbon.
Yeah. And one of the big keys for that, you said it was only aged for a year, but where do they get that color from?
Yeah.
They go through a charcoal filtering process. That's where they get the color and the flavor, the smokiness, the oakiness from that is through the filtering, and you can't do that per the regulations of bourbon.
Now, as a former bar owner, I had Jim Beam as my house pour because I didn't like the raw gut Boston's or whatever else was there, just because I wanted to make a better drink. But still, it was my shelf pour. And I had still in my own mind, I had a stigma. It's just Jim Beam. But I tell you what, after the tour, I like Jonathan was saying, I actually appreciate the fact of if a bottle can actually have those words bourbon on it, I can actually appreciate that bourbon. I don't care if it's a $9 fifth or $100 bottle. I mean, I appreciate the craft, like the artesian quality of the actual bourbon.
Yeah. One of the things I thought it was very interesting, and we'll go through this as we go through the distilleries, but for Buffalo Trace, you're talking about the low end and the high end. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It just depends on where they put it on the rick house. Yeah. The higher temperatures are up at the very top during the summer and whatnot. Of course, like when you go upstairs, it's hotter upstairs. But their ancient age, which is their lower end bourbon, is just the same exact bourbon as
it's the
Buffalo
same
Trace.
Water, same corn,
same mash bill, and it just is at the top of it versus at the lower end.
I guess let's just pretend that no one knows what a mash bill is.
Yeah, okay.
So a mash bill, obviously you have to have that 51% corn.
Yep.
Okay, that's standard. 51% corn, water, and then you have variances between how much rye.
Right.
I mean, I think one person had 37% and 5% barley or whatever it was.
Or you could do wheat.
Or you can do wheat, like Maker's Mark is a wheated bourbon. So, but a lot of these distillers that we went to, especially, had the rye component, because that rye component kind of gives that extra bite, that spiciness, that kind of burn a little bit. So I think I want people to understand what a mash bill is. A mash bill is basically your recipe.
Yeah.
It is like if you make a cake, some people may include milk versus water or this much sugar versus that much sugar. I mean, it is that certain recipe that distillery may have. Also interesting is yeast. These companies have their own proprietary yeast, which what I mean by that, you're not going and getting a bag of Fleischmann's bread yeast from the old Harris Teeters and throwing it into a vat and hoping for science. These are yeast strains, and you talk about crazy.
Yeah.
But these companies thrive on this yeast, this growing inert organic thing that makes beer, bread, and booze wonderful. So these companies will take their strain that they've developed, they will house it inside the facility, but they also have it in other places. And some of the bigger distilleries would not have it just in their distillery in maybe one location off site. They would have it in several locations across the world, just because if an alien invasion happened, that would still have the yeast strain housed for when we rebuild. I mean, honestly, I hate to kind of blow it out of proportion, but that's really what their logistics are.
I think it was Four Roses that has theirs in California, and whenever they need some, they say, "Hey, send us a batch," and it's the size of a pencil head, and they send it to them, and they grow it out of that. So
I think that was small. It was Four Roses,
and that pencil head will eventually be the yeast that's eating out a 40,000 gallon vat. Is what's amazing.
Yeah, that was what I was going to. Yeah, they start out with, they said, a few scrapes of this yeast, and it goes into like a 12-inch tall, almost like a science room.
Yeah, like a
flask. Yeah, and then that grows over a day or two, and then before you know it, it's in these huge vats.
Well, like Wild Turkey. Wild Turkey makes like 20,000 gallons of this yeast composite crap. I mean, to go into their batches. I mean, I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's incredible.
Science is great, but nature's pretty damn awesome too if you look at it. I mean,
sure.
So anyway, I guess maybe we can break it down to these distilleries now, because that's what we're trying to talk about.
No, that's fine. It's great information, and again, it's just a craft. It's the process. Some of the things that they didn't even go through is, and there's a movie called Neat: The Story of Bourbon, which is fantastic. And they even go to the point of, you look at some of these oak trees that are 100 years old that they cut down and use to make the staves. Well, we're getting nutrients from the ground 100 years ago when we take a sip of bourbon, and the corn 4 years ago, what was going on 4 years ago in the soil, and it's taking all that stuff in. So the bourbon you taste now will not taste the same again ever, because all the nutrients that's in that wood.
and I want to apologize, but not apologize actually to our listeners, because reason why we're even talking about this is because it's all information. I mean, even if you don't drink and you're like my Bible thumping parents who don't drink and think that partaking upon adult beverages is of the devil, which is cool. I mean, this is all about information. I mean, if you value the quality of a product, I think you can actually find value in the process of making something that's maybe taboo or whatever. Also is for our international listeners who actually have been drawn to our podcast due to appreciation of American culture, but also Southern culture. And bourbon and whiskey is instinctively Southern. I mean, it is something that's that we go back to our Scottish and Irish roots that have been into the Carolinas and into the Kentucky mountains and Tennessee. I think this is something that's kind of intrinsically built from our forefathers that have settled in the area from those various countries. We were talking to a listener from was it Dundee, Scotland, probably a couple weeks ago, and he was fascinated by American culture and bourbon. And also, I could go back tit for tat. I'm fascinated with Scotch and how they make Scotch. I think each culture, each society, and each nation has their own flavor of adult beverages that they just specialize in. And I think that's unique. I mean, it's not like we're making jailhouse liquor out of sugar, water, bread, and maybe raisins. This is something that's uniquely craft. Even jailhouse liquor is pretty much craft. It's just, it's something unique to the situation. But this is the reason why I want to kind of give a little context to what we're doing. So,
and also one thing I want to point out is that my buddies, they knew I was going on this bourbon trip, and did you get hammered? Did you guys get out of control? And quite the contrary. It was a trip, 4-day trip full of fellowship, interacting with one another, sipping, not getting out of control at all, but just enjoying each other's company, enjoying the beverage, learning more about bourbon. And that's what it was all about.
Yeah, it's about, the taste. Like, everyone is going to be different, but we're not there to get sloppy drunk. We're not even there to get drunk. Just enjoy and appreciate the process, learn about the process, but then how each one, we went to 8 different ones and none of them tasted the same. Every one of those just had a different spin to it, a different flavor to it, and just enjoying that flavor and that taste. Yeah. No, 100%.
I was actually really, for a 4-day trip, I was really happy about the fact that on all the tastings, it's a very small amount that you're actually consuming. We were visiting multiple ones in a day. Instead of it being, you start at 0 and you end up at 8 after the last one. It was more of like after the first one, you're at like a 1 or 2, just a nice, comfortable. I can't even describe how many times we were just laughing. Everyone was in a good mood and just but it was nowhere near drunk or anything like that. It was just a good little buzz all day long, and that's kind of how it was, which made the 4 days very enjoyable.
Yeah, sure.
I'll say one quick thing is that I told my wife that before I went on this trip, unbeknownst to you, JT, perhaps, I said, they're talking about doing this next year in 2020. In 2020. I probably won't go. Well, now that I've been on this one in 2019, put me down for 2020. Nice. It's going to be awesome because you knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, and the great thing is we can do this trip again and hit 8 different other distilleries or 7 other distilleries and not even do the same ones, so that'll be cool.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead, and since you won't do it, I'll do a shameless plug. So if anyone is interested in a bourbon trail tour, you can actually email us at sfpradio@gmail.com. Just put in their bourbon trail in the subject title. We are now encouraging Biggun to actually do his own thing because I know he can do it. There's not a guy in this room, and also the 2 guys that were not able to make it tonight, that doesn't believe that he can do this because, if there's a calling in life, I'm telling you right now, hospitality is Biggun's calling, and his passion of bourbon and hospitality. I know he can do this, and so if you even if you don't want to pay for a trip, email us right now, because I'm telling you right now, he can give you the insight on the ins and outs. But I'm
please
telling you, but if you want to nickel and dime yourself, and you probably can do your own research. But if you actually want a damn good time with places to go, people to see, unique opportunities, I mean, you got to just email sapradio@gmail.com, because I mean, I'm telling you right now, this guy's going to be in business. Don't miss out before his rates go up.
Yeah, get it now before.
And if you put Mojo in the tagline, I'll give you 10% off whatever price we haven't set yet. So there you go.
If I could, I mean, so when I first heard about the trip, it was through my roommate. It was one of the other guys that went, and he who
happens to be like throwing axes,
right?
Yeah, his text
that was very manly.
Yeah, his text was like, "Sorry guys, can't make it. I'm going to be in Raleigh throwing axes." And I was like, "Well, can't argue with that."
Sure.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, "Yeah, I got to exfoliate my back after this."
Yeah, I got to wash my hair. But yeah, when we first heard about it, he just kind of mentioned it, and anything we're very similar. So I was like, "Yeah, man, I'm in." And I didn't really know where all we were going or what we were doing. And then once we got sent the itinerary, I think the text I sent back was, "This is incredible," And as we were going along that trip, I was so impressed with just the detail and how everything lined up, the hospitality of it all. I mean, truly, JT, I'm so thankful, to have been a part of that. And once again, not just to throw another plug in there, but if there's another trip next year, I will absolutely be on it.
Awesome.
100%.
And next year's hashtag will be "Life is short. Let's have fun." So
let's have fun again. So, and again, this all could not have happened without my wife. You guys point to me and I point to her. She put all this stuff together.
No, we give her props. There
was one point where we had to leave to go to another distillery, and we had to leave at 3:15. I look at the clock and it is 3:13. And we're like, let's go. Like, we are right on target. It was perfect. She timed it perfectly.
My whole goal is to make you cry during this podcast, so I'm trying.
It's getting there.
Okay,
it's getting there.
Let me play this music video for you.
So we'll talk about the distilleries. Again, the first one we went to was Town Branch / AllTech. Out of the gate, they make Town Branch bourbon, and then Kentucky Ale beer, and they had some fantastic flavors, coffee stouts. And what they do is they make their own bourbon, and smart choice, they use those same bourbon barrels, and then they put their beer into that, and then they age their bourbon barrels, or age their beer in the bourbon barrels, which is a fantastic taste. So what did you guys think? Overall thoughts on Town Branch and their beer?
Well, so that was the first one we visited, and I had nothing to base that experience on at that point. A few things that I noticed was it seemed like the facilities were all brand new and very clean and very, I don't know, just had this sense of it didn't have so much of the historical sense that we ended up seeing later, but I did value the fact that everything there was just nice, and even the landscaping that they had was just was really nice. That was my first impression.
Nice. And again, this is like smack down the middle of Lexington, Kentucky, so not far from the old Rupp Arena.
So just to kind of give you some of their brands, they actually make a start the here. They actually make a Town Branch rye whiskey, a Town Branch malt whiskey, Town Branch bourbon, Town Branch gin. Actually, gin.
You loved their gin.
I loathe gin. But this gin was actually legit. I mean, I would, if it was me, I'd be bebopping up and down the road with some gin and juice. I'm telling you straight up. They have a Town Branch bourbon finished in a sherry cask. They also have their subsidiary, which is, this company's huge. I've never heard of AllTech before, but AllTech is a multi-billion-dollar company that's international. And they have this Town Branch here in Kentucky, but they also have their sister company in Ireland, in Dublin. So their subsidiary in Dublin, their sister company, they make a Pierce whiskey, Irish whiskey. One of the favorites of everyone was this Bluegrass Sundown Spirit, which was this kind of like chocolate liqueur, coffee liqueur type beverage that you add.
Tim, you brought that for your wife.
I did. And what you do, you You pour it in a shot glass. You add some hot water,
Mm-hmm.
and then you pour heavy cream over it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to make a delicious dessert drink. And I brought that for my bride, and so we're looking forward to having that.
You haven't cracked it open yet?
We haven't cracked it open yet. We tried it there at the distillery, and it was awesome. So I highly recommend that.
Nice.
Also, they make a Kentucky vanilla barrel cream ale. They make, surprisingly, was actually good. Their tequila barrel wheat.
That was good.
They make a Kolsch, which is kind of a lighter beer. It's a great summertime beer. They make an Irish red ale. They make an IPA, which is an Indian pale ale. They make a coffee barrel cream ale, which is actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
The coffee barrel stout, which is probably my favorite. They make a bourbon barrel blackberry porter, which they didn't have when we
didn't have that there. I think that's a summertime.
bourbon barrel ale, and I think that's about it right now they have. But my impression of the facilities, I think, like Jonathan said, it didn't have that kind of legacy setting.
Yeah.
Like, which we'll talk about some of the other ones later. It was, I don't want to say it was very industrial looking, but it was nice. It was a beautiful building. The most out of all the distilleries, they were probably my top one as far as the still pots.
Yeah.
They actually had still pots that Jameson's Irish whiskey had actually ordered and never used. That the owner of the business was like, I guess I'll buy them for my place. So he actually, these still pots from Ireland or copper pots are just beautiful. They were architecture. They were, a lot of times if you see something artwork or architecture, you kind of think sexy. These things were sexy looking. So, and also they did a jam up job, just doing a great service to their product and displaying their product and telling us about the product. But also, they probably had the largest offering as far as tasting that we had.
Oh yeah,
gone to.
That's a good point. Yeah.
One benefit too is a couple places we went to where they had tokens. They would give you a certain amount of tokens when you went in. You could revisit that same place 2 or 3 times and then use those tokens for something else, like one of the other kinds of beers that you wanted to taste or whatever, which I think kind of adds to the value of going back.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it all. You can try other things.
The great thing about going with 6 other guys is you could everybody could take something different. Be like, here, try this, try this. So you could take a little sip of each one of those things and cover all your bases. So cool. So Town Branch was a great facility. Anything to add about Town Branch, Tim?
No, I'm good.
You're good? All right. So that was our first night. After that, we again went to KSBar and Grille. We hung out with Tim Jones, saw 78, which we all appreciate that. And then
KS did have the world's record of the smallest Manhattan pour.
Right.
Just as an aside, I'm just
sure. He was a little upset about his pour at KSBar and Grille.
It was like a communion cup, I guess.
Yeah.
It was kind of small.
Overall, good food. I thought it was a good place.
It was.
And then so we headed to the hotel for the night.
No. We went to the Honey Hole.
Oh, we did. What was the name? Well, no, we're not going to say that.
It was wine and something.
Let's not say it because then somebody's going to steal it.
It was called Fresh Market.
Yeah, Fresh Market, Whole Foods, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's Whole Foods. It was Amazon Prime is what it was.
But Tim did an awesome job. We wanted to go find, some harder to find bourbons. He hooked us up, said, hey, these guys are coming. Don't close the store. We were able to get in, get some really good stuff, and then head out.
A very unique store. It's something that, I would expect them to be like, the bigger, metropolitan areas where you have like the craft cheeses and the cured meats, extra age. But I did not expect that big ass bourbon selection because that's foreign to us in North Carolina.
Sure, yeah, you go to the store.
Liquor and booze is so regulated in the state. You cannot imagine going to a corner store and seeing booze.
Yeah.
But they not only did they have booze, they had the best of the best.
Yeah, they had some good stuff, no doubt. All right, so then the next morning we got up and then headed out. The first stop we made was Kentucky Nose. I want to give Tony a shout out. He makes bourbon barrel coffee, also makes things out of Buffalo Trace bourbon barrels. We enjoyed his coffee. It was good stuff. Any thoughts on Tony?
the coffee there was amazing. He actually gave you the opportunity to nose each coffee, taking the vibe, as far as each coffee. It was very interesting. It was definitely good. Enjoyed it.
Sure. I learned more about grinders than I ever thought I would, and that's not the app.
I'm glad you specify there.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
His passion for coffee and everything that went into it and how you grind it and of course was really, it was almost inspiring, to see someone with that kind of passion over something that seems simple on the surface, but after you listen to him for, 15 minutes, it was amazing to realize how much depth there is and how much depth that he has enveloped himself in, which was really cool.
I don't know if it was the coffee or his speech, but I kind of wanted a Kool-Aid man through the brick wall and be like, oh yeah, I can do anything. He was very, very inspirational. Anything?
Yeah. I will selfishly, I think you need to look at Tony. He took coffee beans. He took pieces of wood from a barrel and made a business out of it.
Yeah.
Therefore, you take your passion and do tours. I'm telling you right now,
sure.
I think you can be inspired by that. But no, seriously, this guy, I don't know him. I have no relationship with him. But to see someone so passionate, small business owner, to see someone so enveloped into their craft, and just the little facets of spinning the coffee container around brings different notes, and this bouquet of arrangements of flavors to the nasal palate is amazing. I mean, I would have never. I've been around food all my life, but I've been around culinary and hospitality, or culinary and the aromas and things like that for over 20 years. But there was things I did not realize that the olfactory senses of your nasal passages you can pick up by just doing certain things, and just the uniqueness of how you take a simple coffee bean, which is not simple, just in the growing of that coffee bean and selection of that, it's just artistry there. Yeah. But just the way you can blend flavors with this simple coffee bean, grind it up in this $42 million grinder that NASA made, and make a different cup of coffee than you would at your local corner Circle K gas station. Yeah. I think it's amazing.
He also, and once again, this might be plug number 4 about JT's genius in trip planning, but
Biggun's Bourbon Trail.
Biggun's Bourbon Trail. He was the first one who sort of initiated us into, when you are smelling something, you open your mouth a little bit, and when you do that and breathe in that way, you can actually taste what you're smelling, and then that information alone helped me quite a bit through the rest of the distilleries. I was able to really bring out some of the flavors just from smelling with my mouth slightly open, which is one of the things he was
which brings out our second hashtag, which is hashtag Kentucky Chew.
Yes.
Sure.
Which I'm going to make sure Ashton knows that he's got to text me on that one. So
yeah. And just for our listeners, the Kentucky Chew is where you breathe in, like when you have just some bourbon in your mouth, you breathe in a little bit, and then you chew it, which is an odd
with the booze in your mouth,
right? Which is an odd thing. Like, why would you chew a liquid? But it really kind of brings out.
Yeah, it brings out the notes. You're allowing the booze to be oxygenated, and also swirls around your palate. Yep. So, your tongue has different sections of your tongue where it has different senses of flavor. And what you're doing is you're opening up your whole palate to explore all the different flavors. And the cool thing about bourbon, or anything really, but bourbon, when you're tasting this, something that I may taste certain notes versus someone else. You may have a totally different experience with it. And that's the reason why that different varieties may be different. Your different bag or cup of tea.
Yeah.
So,
and we'll have a link. And at the beginning of even Southern Fried Philosophy, we linked out to Kentucky Knows. So if you want to buy any of his stuff, please go out there and take a look. And he also makes amazing things out of barrel heads too. So seats and Lazy Susans, all kinds of things.
Yeah. You have one of his chandeliers, don't you?
Yeah, in our dining room, our dining room light is made from the rings of a bourbon barrel that he made. So it was good stuff.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. So let's keep going.
But I think the most impressive thing was just his passion.
Oh yeah, dude's passionate, no doubt about it.
Kind of like you.
Yeah.
Like JT is with his bourbon.
sfpradio@gmail.com. Just put in Bourbon Trail.
The next one we're going to go to is Buffalo Trace. I mean, it is a heavy hitter in the bourbon world. Probably the number one bourbon distillery, I would say, in the world. They knock out things like Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, Pappy Van Winkle,
Blanton's,
a Weller. I mean,
Bourbon Cream.
The Bourbon Cream there, fantastic. These E.H. Taylor. I mean, they knock out some of the world's most sought after bourbons all over the planet. Initial thoughts of Buffalo Trace.
Go ahead.
Well, the setting kind of reminded me of Dublin, Ireland. The architecture, the H facility. I mean, that was in stark contrast to AllTech, or Kentucky.
Industrial from AllTech, the exact opposite from Buffalo Trace.
Well, I guess you say modern / industrial to legacy, mass craftsmanship, if I can say that, if that's a correct term, because they're a big time operation.
Yeah.
I mean, but you can tell the craftsmanship in it. So,
yeah.
The craftsmanship was definitely there. More of a manufacturing type atmosphere, but old school.
Yeah.
I can see where Brandon is talking about the Ireland old school aspect. The barrel houses were tall, right in your face. You walked in and you looked up for several hundred feet and you saw nothing but a dark room full of barrels that were sitting there just waiting to be aged in the maturing process.
Yeah.
Definitely an old school distillery that took you back in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree that was the second one we saw after the first one, which was totally different. It had, it was like very new school-esque versus this place has been here forever. And after we got out of there, I thought, like, it seemed like they were showing us everything. You kind of like looking under her skirt a little bit.
Right,
and
sure.
The thing is, I liked what I saw. I mean, it was just real. This is what we're doing. This is how we do it. The only thing they didn't tell you what they were doing, and a lot of the distilleries were like that, but was, I guess, the yeast itself. But it was just, you could tell it was a process that had been going on for a very long time that they had dialed in really, really well.
There you go.
And see that with that tour,
Good call.
I think most uniqueness to that tour was it was like a behind the scenes of a Hollywood studio production.
Yeah.
I mean, we got to see the grain truck dropping the corn off in the compartments where they store all of it. We got to see the dirtiness of it. The
good call.
You would never take a restaurant tour like, all right, let me come show you the grease compounds back there.
It was total transparency.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was probably the uniqueness of our whole trip, was that one distillery where they just really did a good job of, like, you know what, this is us in our full Monty. If you like it, you like it.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy.
In full disclosure, we took the hard hat tour, which isn't the normal tour, and
Tour.
And I was so worried that we wouldn't get this tour that they only release it at certain times when you can take it, when you can sign up for it. And guys, that night, it was like 3 months ahead, I was hitting refresh at midnight, making sure that we could get on this tour, because I heard this was the one to go to. The other one's a little bit more polished, more prettier, but this one, like you said, it's behind the scenes, dirt and all. And here we go. We're going to show you what we got. But I'm really glad that we got to try that experience. It was something that I've never been on before, and it was a good experience to go on. So I highly recommend the hard hat tour if you go to Buffalo Trace.
Which, ironically, you get no hard hats. I was looking forward to a hard hat, but
sure, there wasn't one. I'm sorry. I'll provide them next time.
Well, I'm hoping they'll have Biggun's Bourbon Trail on the hard hats.
So, and then the next one we went to was Woodford Reserve. Again, another complete stark contrast. They only make Woodford Reserve products, so Woodford Reserve Rye, Woodford Reserve Double Oak, and I think that's about it. They just have 3, and it's either you like it or you don't.
Yeah, it was a very simple tour, but man, what a beautiful facility too. I mean, we had lunch there. Lunch was less than spectacular.
Sure.
I give you that. I mean,
by the way, I didn't know that there was a grill menu. Did you know that there was hamburgers?
You telling me now?
Yeah. I forgot to tell you about that.
That is amazing.
I didn't know until somebody pulled out a hamburger. I was like, what the heck?
All right, I've been promoting this whole Biggun's Bourbon Trail tour.
Yeah, that was a fail.
I'm just saying that.
That was a fail on me.
I wanted to give them a 9 out of 10 stars on Yelp now.
Great. There was not a grill, by the way. But it was, I think you described the brand new visitor center as somebody from Apple came in and designed this visitor center. Like it was upscale, if I could use that word.
Yeah. No, I think they, I mean, they did a great job. I mean, just laying it out. It was very beautiful.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Very modern. More so than the ones that we visited. They had a bunch of Woodford bottles on display, as you would have a bunch of iPhones with a glass background, but more modern, very nice. But when you went down into the distillery portion, it was in fact very historic in several areas, but it did lend to a more modern type of environment. Maybe
even modern / upscale. Like it just felt like this is the official drink of the Kentucky Derby, and it felt like, yeah, we are. It was very upscale, very almost like a high maintenance girlfriend. Like she's up there.
It kind of reminds me of like Charleston, South Carolina, where you have such history dripping from every street and nook and cranny. But hey, then all of a sudden you have this new Nuevo American cuisine restaurant sitting in a historic building that's been there since the 1700s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just it's like the perfection of modern and heritage together.
Yeah.
But from what I recall, we had a great hostess and tour guide. She did a great job.
She did a good job. She thoroughly enjoyed her tour. I mean, she had the spiel down pat. She was invested in her spiel. She was invested in her product that she was representing. I would love to have seen more there, but I really don't think they had much more to show.
Yeah. That was pretty much it.
But just, the fermenters there. I mean, that was probably unique. I mean, all these places have their own unique fermenters, but, a lot of these fermenters who have, or these distilleries that have a legacy or historical value, like Woodford or Makers or whatever, their fermenters are made out of these cypress wood pots, and cypress wood is now an endangered species of trees here in America, so no one can ever harvest anything. So if you can find an intact fermenter pot, I mean, in a distillery, then you're that's money.
Sure.
And that's what these places had. Woodford was one of these, several of these cypress fermenter pots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed Woodford very much. And before we went, actually, one of my favorite whiskeys or bourbons at that point was Woodford. Based on, and Ashton and I have been trying different things. Ashton, my roommate, also went with us, but he.
That's the axe throwing guy.
The axe thrower, yeah. But yeah, I agree thoroughly. When we got there, I almost felt underdressed a little bit. You could tell the people that were there knew that this was, the welcome center or the place where you
like
ate
a country
was.
Club.
It was,
yeah.
And you could tell that everyone there was just sort of
right.
Knew more than I did.
It's kind of like you're retired tonight. You're dressed like you're about to go golf.
I know this is a college. So absolutely. But then I was impressed when we went around to where they were actually making the bourbon. They had a lot of old school, like the Cypress mash tanks, and of course our tour guide was great. But they distilled 3 times, and that is one thing that's a key. Is some places they only distill 2 times, and the argument, I guess, is if you distill 3 times, maybe you're losing some of the the character. Whereas the other argument is if you only distill twice, then you keep more of the character, but it's a little more, maybe a little more rough to drink.
Clean. Yeah.
Yeah. Cleaner with the 3.
And what he means by character of that is just the characteristics of the grain that was being used.
Yeah. That's just one of the arguments.
No, it's great. Yeah.
I really enjoyed Woodford. I thought they did a great job.
One thing too that I want to bring out, one thing that I learned about Buffalo Trace, going back to that, is Buffalo Trace.
They don't use real buffaloes.
No,
you're right. There's no buffaloes harmed in the making of this bourbon. But Buffalo Trace is like a $28 bottle of bourbon, and Eagle Rare is a $34 bottle of bourbon. And the difference between those two is 2 years of aging and 25 feet higher on the rick house.
Crazy, isn't it?
And they have two completely different taste palettes. Right now, we're enjoying a bottle of Buffalo Trace, but the Eagle Rare, more sought after, but it's only 25 feet higher in the rick house. It blows my mind, just the difference. And at Woodford or wherever you put those barrels is going to be a completely different taste. But
that's the amazing thing about bourbon.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just placement and climate.
Yep,
that's basically it.
Yep.
I mean, it's all the same ingredients in every barrel, and I think it's what you're talking about. Each one of these distilleries, with the exception of Four Roses, they use the same booze, same barrel. It's just different placement in the rick house.
Yeah. All right. So after that one, you guys were able to take the Wild Turkey tour. I had to go pick up a thing for my CPAP, so I had to run into Lexington and come back because I forgot it. But tell us about the Wild Turkey tour.
That was the least impressive. But I think as far as Wild Turkey goes, we always assume that's a low-end type pour, but it's not. The facilities were nice. They had a huge amount of barrel houses, which we drove out to, which gave had that dark, on the siding as far as the angel share,
the whiskey fungus,
the whiskey fungus. But I think out of all the distilleries we went to, the Wild Turkey was probably the least desirable, but still a great tour nonetheless.
Yeah, cool.
My whole burden was the tour guy kept saying "tour." That was no, but not to try to knock Wild Turkey. Like Wild Turkey actually makes some pretty good products. The Wild Turkey, just their base of Wild Turkey, is actually a decent bourbon. Their Wild Turkey Rare is probably one of my favorites. Their 101 is a great product. Nothing like super spectacular, but once again, it goes to the one thing I have to say for most of these distilleries is the father-son, son-in-law connections. The family legacy.
Yeah.
This is their family legacy. It's involved in a recipe that goes in a barrel. And that's kind of amazing in my opinion. But yeah, I agree with Tim that as far as the tour, after going to Woodford and seeing these like plush grounds, like you almost walk into the Masters, you're expecting Tiger Woods to walk out next to Phil Mickelson.
Right.
And all of a sudden you go to Wild Turkey and it's more this like extremely budget version of Disneyland. Okay, hop on the bus. We're going to show you this and that.
It's a working man's distillery, and we can appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely.
I think it's probably worth pointing out that at this point we were kind of becoming distillery tour connoisseurs / snobs. So we had seen really good places where. Totally aside from the product, we saw very polished presenters and tour guides, and you could tell they had spent a lot of time in investments in making the good tour.
Absolutely.
Whereas this, Wild Turkey, aside from the product altogether, it seemed like they had the attitude of this is what we're doing, and if you like it, great. If you don't, then that's okay too.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy the products they had. We had our tasting. I thought it was great. And I almost, in hindsight now, I almost appreciate, or I do appreciate the fact that they were just, this is what it is.
Yeah.
If you love it, great. If
That's
not,
right.
That's okay.
That's right.
One of the things they recently invested in was the tasting room. I got there late, but I was able to still see it. And that view out there,
oh, it's gorgeous.
While you're tasting is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
So
they knocked it out of the park as far as tasting room goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The view was amazing.
All right, so we left there and went to Claudia Standers, enjoyed some wonderful dinner there. You guys enjoyed that?
Absolutely.
It was fantastic. Then day two started off with Maker's Mark, the Maker's Mark Distillery.
Wow.
Thoughts?
The grounds were just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, impeccably manicured lawn, bushes. I mean, you wouldn't even think that. I mean, that doesn't make a good bourbon. You know, the facilities just don't make a good bourbon. It's the recipe, it's the aging. But man, what an experience from just a simple tour aspect. You know, you go in there to see this product, and you're there. Tim, you probably took more pictures at Maker's Mark than any place, I'd bet.
Yeah, I think the Maker's tour knocked it out of the park. I think the customer, us being the customer experience was amazing. To be able to watch her, to tag your own bottle, for not much more money.
Yeah,
to tag your own bottle.
Oh, that was the you can dip your own bottle there.
It was the dip.
You tag and then dip.
Yeah,
etc. And that was the Knob Creek, right?
No, that's Jim Beam. The Maker's is the red dip.
Gotcha. We had several guys try to dip their own bottle, and that was a great experience. But yeah, Maker's was a great facility.
Also, I'd like to say, if you go to sfpradio@gmail.com and sign up for the Biggun's Bourbon Trail Tour, you can also add on Tim Sigmund as your tour photographer.
Oh, yeah.
Also, because he took some beautiful shots.
He really did.
You might do it for a 2-for-1 package. And if you book now through September, you actually get a 10% discount if you mention Mojo.
Jonathan, Maker's, thoughts on that?
Maker's, I agree. It was a beautiful plantation, I guess. And interesting, I think probably good to note is the first turn that your GPS takes you on is this super dangerous, like 1 1/4 lane wide road, this curvy, and if there's someone going the other way, someone's got to get in the grass.
Just wide enough
maybe
for
both.
Yeah.
And if there is another way, I guess, that the trucks take, and even they advised us on the way back, like, hey, if you don't want to risk your life, you can go the other way.
Go the other way,
which is cool.
When Tim is in the back skiing, we're late.
Yeah, take a left on the Maker's Mark Road, which ironically is the worst road in Kentucky, but yeah.
Oh, you're going to meet your maker on that one. How about it?
That's what it's for. Yeah. As far as the ground, or as far as the tour went, I thought it was very, very pretty. You could tell they had spent a lot of time to try to make sure that the tour goers had a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe even to the point where it seemed maybe even too pretty. You could almost get the sense that, you know, there's another plant somewhere else where things are really going down.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
But you know, you can tell they're doing stuff there, and they wanted to make it a good experience for us, and I had a good experience. So.
Good.
I think Maker's, didn't it? They have the first female.
Maybe I can't remember.
I think Maker's was the first female distiller, I believe.
Maybe I don't remember that, but could be.
You're supposed to know these things.
I got an 8.5 now on Biggun's Bourbon Tour for lack of knowledge.
That's 8.75.
Then the next one we did that night was Jim Beam. That was you're remembering now, Tim. What are you guys' thoughts on Jim Beam? At first, I was like, oh man, this is going to be awful when I first went on the tour, but blows expectations out of the water, I believe.
I was pleasantly surprised with Jim Beam.
Yeah,
I had the same sort of premeditated thoughts about Jim Beam and what they were. I was really, really impressed with from start to finish, the fact that we were able to, as Tim mentioned earlier, they gave us the opportunity to, they also make Knob Creek. And so they gave you the opportunity to do a single barrel, and you were able to get it engraved, and you're able to put had its own label thing, which was special to our tour, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It was a great distillery, and you got the customer experience. That was first class.
Well, the experience was totally different than what I imagined. I mean, because in fact, you made a comment on the way there, oh, we could go to Willett. And I was like, yeah, let's go to Willett. Because in my mind, I was like, Jim Beam's going to be a crap hole.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Especially after seeing Wild Turkey.
Sure.
I just expected, I had my expectations even lowered. The benchmark was extremely low. I mean, for Jim Beam. It would be like comparable going to Walmart and getting like Dr. Chex versus Coca-Cola. I mean, you're expecting just a crap brand. But man, what a great job they did. I mean, the facilities, once again, I equate everything to facilities, a lot of the facilities. The facilities were beautiful. Man, they had the tour lined out. I mean, they had, the tour director was very passionate about the product he represented. The tasting room, we got an option to taste like, 15 different varieties. Accordingly, I mean, you only got to choose 4,
right,
or 3, I think, I'm sorry, 2.
3.
Okay, you got to choose 3. So
he gave you 2, and you got to pick one.
Okay, so you got to choose something, but you had such a unique variety to choose from, and like I said, the passion of the guy, very well laid out. I mean, I thought it was going to be very mechanical, very aseptic, very industrial, but no, it was in for them to have that quality of a tour, and they produce a barrel of bourbon every 98 seconds.
Yeah.
That's a lot of bourbon.
That's a ton.
That's a lot of booze.
Yeah.
So for them to produce that much and to have something they actually still care about the tourist side of it, very unique.
Yeah.
Very, very great. And also, like Jonathan talked about, and also Tim talked about, just to have the opportunity to take a single barrel of booze, them turn it over, and you get to have them bottle your own one-of-a-kind bottle of bourbon.
With your fingerprint.
Yeah, with your fingerprint, thumbprint, forehead print, eyeball print, whatever on the top of the bottle. Just something unique. And, I got 2 bottles. I didn't buy any bourbon the whole trip. I bought 2 bottles at this place because I had a special moment, and I was like, I need to do this. I bought 2 bottles for both my girls. I want to open these bottles at the night of their wedding. I want to open these bottles and split these bottles with my girls and whomever they marry. God rest their soul. But but just to have something that I put some thought into for 35 years or 40 years in the future, whenever they decide to get married, when I'm almost dead. Right. So just that unique opportunity to have that. I mean, everyone bought their bottle and had different reasonings for buying that bottle. Some, like I think, Jonathan, you bought yours for your wedding, right? Or bachelor party
had something
or something.
memorable. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I think Ashton did the same thing. We all pulled our money together and bought you a bottle just for appreciation.
Yeah, thank you.
Tim, did you buy a bottle?
I did.
And Tim bought a bottle because he loved me. So I mean, there's all everybody had their own personal reasonings. And that's something kind of cool about that unique souvenir. Sure. It's not like you're going to buy a cap or a bottle opener or whatever. You bought something that was unique to that experience. And from now on, I'll look at that bottle and I'll remember that moment when I decided to buy that bottle. You know what I'm saying? It's like the moment you decide to give your life to Jesus. You'll know that exact moment. You'll know your reasoning behind it. You'll know the exact thought. Just like that moment with that bottle, I know the reason why and the intent behind it.
Yeah. Awesome.
That tour in particular, too, it wasn't, so the guide we have, I don't remember his name, but he wasn't selling the product or anything like that. He wasn't he was a retired military guy. You can tell, like, this is just what he does.
Ironically, he told us his favorite drink was Jack Daniels.
And he was just a cool guy, and it really wasn't him. Whereas I think other places that might have had a bigger effect, it was really more of him just giving us the information in a real, raw, without pumping it up or anything like that, which I really enjoyed. And he was also one of the first guys who he kind of broke down in percentages the angel share. And so how the first year there's 14, you lose about 15% of what you put in there to the angel share. And then every year after that was another 4 or 5%. And so to me, just kind of thinking about the numbers, it started to make more sense as to why a bourbon that's aged, 7 or 10 or 12 years is really worth that much more as opposed to just a brand name or paying for, with clothes, you're paying for the brand name. I mean, truly, they're losing, and they put 53 gallons in, and they may take 15 gallons out. And then he also mentioned they still have to pay taxes on that whole,
the whole 53.
The whole 53, And so there's a ton of money there that's just going to nowhere, well, going to government, I guess. But and so
I guess they should call the angel share the tax portion.
Yeah, that's the government share.
Government share. And Jim Beam, I mean, you have the Jim Beam products, as you mentioned before, the Double Oak and the Jim Beam and whatnot, but they also kick out Baker's 7 and Booker's, which Booker's is probably one of my favorite off-the-shelf bourbons.
Yeah, they do a good job
and that one's a really good bourbon. It's $70.
And the Jim Beam Peach. They do make the flavors. And actually the flavors actually smell wonderful. We weren't able to try those, and I'm too frugal to belly up another, money for that.
Sure.
But no, they smelled wonderful. They actually smell what they intended. They don't smell that kind of like that fake medicinal, like, Luden's cherry cough syrup flavors, which that's still my favorite cough syrup, and it doesn't help, but it's still, that kind of smell.
Yeah. Yeah. So that wrapped up our night. And then the next one we did, the very last one, was Four Roses going out of town.
Hold on. We went to Churchill Downs.
Oh, we did. We're going to talk about Churchill?
I think so.
Let's do it. Let's talk about Churchill.
So Churchill Downs is the historic horse racing track there in Louisville, Kentucky. And
you said it right. Good job.
Louisville.
It's like you have marbles in your mouth.
Yeah.
Louisville.
So anyway, so we went to Churchill Downs, and we got there a little bit later than what I think we thought we were.
Yeah, we were about an hour late.
But it's all right. But we still got to participate in 3 races. And that stadium is huge.
Huge.
I mean, it is ginormous. I mean, I don't know how many people it holds.
Huge.
But holy crap, you can fit a few people in there.
Sure.
And we got to bet. We got to watch 3 races and bet on them. It was just a unique experience. People watching watching beautiful horses run races. It's just a unique experience.
Yeah.
So once again, Biggun's Bourbon Trail.
There's so much history. Obviously, that's and I mentioned to Tim and Chris, who's not here, it's like next time we watch the Derby, it's a completely different perspective of watching it. Oh, yeah, I remember sitting in those seats that now cost $10,000.
Yeah.
It was a good experience to have. And by far, and we didn't get to try it, we will. Here we go, 2020. The best hot brown at the Derby Cafe, hands down, that I've ever had in my life. We'll try it next time.
It comes from there.
It comes from the Churchill Downs. Yeah. It is phenomenal. But it was a good experience. I didn't bet
we enjoyed that. I think all of us did. I mean, I for our own different reasons, but it was kind of cool.
I texted my wife, "Holy crap, Brandon just won $12,000." And she said, "Really?" I'm like, "No."
take a few thousand off of it. Few tens of thousands.
Sure. All right. So then the last one we did was Four Roses. Totally different grounds there. It's more of like a Spanish architecture there. Totally different than all the other ones.
It was like, do you remember the old Mexican-American chain called Don Pablo's?
That's pretty spot on.
It kind of reminded me of Don Pablo's.
Yeah, I got you.
Some of the other defunct Tex-American Mex chains, Yeah, it was definitely a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts on Four Roses?
Well, they were closed for the most part as far as the distilling portion.
Right.
And one thing I learned is that so many of these distilleries closed down and ceased production during the summer months because it's so hot.
Yep.
And so they send their staff on vacations, etc. But that was interesting to know. But it seems like Buffalo Trace never did mention that.
Yeah,
I think Buffalo Trace was up and running, 365 days a year. But from what it seems like for Four Roses, they were shut down for a period of time
Yeah.
in the summer months, which was the case when we were there.
Yeah, they were closed for maintenance and repairs, quote unquote. But they do, like all your distilleries will close during the summer. It's just too hot to run because those fermenters are just so hot. You can't really have people in there and do your tours and things like that. So they kind of shut down at that time for that.
Yeah, with Four Roses, I thought it was that was the first tour that actually had like an earpiece where she was
Right.
talking into a microphone,
That
and
was
you
kinda
just
weird.
had
Which was the only tour that we didn't need that, you know?
Right.
right because
Yeah.
there's like 15 of us. But that was I thought like I wish all the other tours had that because a lot of times if you weren't angled the right way, which where his mouth was going, you heard half the sentence.
Yeah.
So that was cool,
Yeah.
but it was a much smaller operation. It seemed like, and we kind of just I think we saw just the fringe, because they weren't
Yeah.
up and running. So.
Yeah.
This is not a knock on their product, but in a world of these great times of touring, touring, where these distilleries are putting money into the guest level experience. Four Roses was the Taco Bell of theme parks.
Ouch.
So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it was just. I had no expectations walking in, so they didn't let me down, but they didn't exceed anything either. I mean,
Sure.
it was. Don't get me wrong, their product I think is very unique because they're the only distiller that actually uses 10 recipes, 10 different
that's
10
right.
different mash bills
Yeah.
or whatever. So very unique with how they make their product. So I think that was probably the most unique and saving grace of Four Roses was just that they took a different approach to making bourbon versus the other ones.
Yeah. Buffalo Trace, I think they said they had 2 mash bills, and that's it.
And most of them had one.
Yeah, and these guys had 10. I think they're trying too hard. That's what I thought.
But they take the 10 and they blend them. Like, we'll take recipe 1 and 7, and that makes our small batch, or
Right.
1 and 8, and that makes or 1, 8, and 7, 4 makes our regular drinking bourbon. I mean,
Yeah.
it was kind of unique.
Yeah, it does have a whole different structure, like foundation almost of, instead of taking this tried and true, because we have these 10 mash bills, we can always mix them, and you might not see this again for another 3 years.
Yeah.
When we mixed 1 and 7.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the tour itself went, I was, you could just tell.
Especially the tour guide's like, hey, look at this picture. This is what we do. We put corn and water together. And that's how, all right, let's walk over to picture number 2. Picture number
Right.
2 shows yeast. And walk over to picture number 3. 3 shows a cat making hand puppets in the, I mean, you're like, what the hell's going on here?
One thing that little secret that I was led on to is once you go through the tasting room, if you tell the lady like, hey, what else you got back there? After everybody leaves, you say, hey, I heard you can get a little something extra. And
What if she gets the wrong idea?
she might, just make sure you say behind the, behind the counter. It doesn't help any. But if you say, hey, I heard that you can get some special stuff, man, you really got to phrase this correctly at some point. But
Actually, all you got to say is hashtag life is short, let's have fun. And they actually will bring out the secret hops.
well, they did bring out a special bottle for us, just a little taste of one that's hard to get. It was a private select, and we were able to get and taste that one. So that one actually I liked a whole lot better than anything else they had.
Yeah. But the time that Tim actually, for his retirement bottle of bourbon, he graciously shared with us at DCBC, our downtown Cabarrus, or downtown Cigar Bourbon Club. It was really good, just a regular Four Roses.
Yeah.
And I was very impressed with that because, to my knowledge at the time, I thought Four Roses was bottom of the barrel, kind of like a slug whiskey or rock gut. So I was very impressed with that.
Yeah. So I wanted to get Chris's and Ashton's thoughts as well. I asked them to arrange their order of which they did it. And Chris is, again, the owner of Red Hill Brewery here in Concord. His order was Buffalo Trace number 1. I think most of us can agree with that one.
I agree.
Jim Beam was number 2. Town Branch for him was number 3. Again, he's the brewmaster. He's the brewery guy. So Town Branch, obviously with the brewery, means a lot to him. Woodford Reserve was number 4. Maker's Mark. Number 5, Wild Turkey was number 6, and Four Roses was number 7. For Ashton, again, the first 2, Buffalo Trace and Jim Beam, 1 and 2. For Ashton, number 3 was Maker's Mark. Number 4, Woodford Reserve. Number 5, Town Branch. Number 6, Wild Turkey. And number 7 was Four Roses. Do you guys kind of agree, disagree?
I'll agree with 6 and 7.
Yep. Wild Turkey, Four Roses at the bottom.
I would place AllTech a little higher.
Okay.
It'd probably be Buffalo Trace, AllTech, or Town Branch, and then
Jim Beam.
Jim Beam,
And then
and then probably Makers, and then Woodford. I would say.
Yeah, I think that's fair for me.
For me, I'm Buffalo Trace at the top.
Okay.
And it could have been having the hard hat tour, but I don't think so. I like the place. You could tell it's been there forever, and you can tell they have it dialed in. For me, second actually would be Woodford Reserve.
Okay.
Even though it was a little bit uppity, I mean, they still had the old barrel tracks that they were using. They would still roll the barrels down. You know, they had a lot of in the old limestone rick houses. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I had a good experience there. And then behind that, then I would put Jim Beam, and then
AllTech, Town Branch,
Town Branch, yeah. And then from there, the last 3 are, they were all kind of.
Well, I think we probably can all agree Four Roses was definitely last.
Yeah. Which surprised me when I went. That was the first one that I went on, and I was like, "Oh, this is a cool tour." But again, your first one, you're going through the process. It was also up and running, so that was a little bit different.
Yeah, but I think I don't think the guest experience was set so high. Like if we would have gone to Four Roses that first day, we'd probably like, hey, this ain't bad. But the bar was set so high as far as information to the grounds to the experience. I think Four Roses had a long ways to come up. You know what I'm saying? Like, just the sheer grounds alone. I hate keep saying this, but as a former restaurateur, as soon as you walk in the door, the parking lot, that's the experience.
Yeah,
you know to prepare that if you got a crackhead laying out with a pack of menthol, you may not want to eat there. So I'm not saying they had a crackhead out there, but like the grass hadn't even been cut in a while. Just type things. I mean, that's not taken away from the product. I'm just saying that they had some hurdles to go through.
Sure. Yeah.
In Four Roses' defense, even though everything was shut down, so we kind of saw the outside tour, and they sort of, there was a fountain. They said, hey, you can go take pictures over there, which I was like, a little confusing.
Right.
But the whole thing, and knowing to ask them if you have something special, and the lady that we had was great.
Yeah.
She was doing her thing. You could tell she was, she was really trying to do what she could with what she had. And having that experience of being able to sort of let everybody leave and then taste that, to me, that kind of brought it back a little bit. Not just to throw Four Roses in the dirt or anything.
Right.
I agree. I think our expectations were so high at that point because we had taken different things that we liked from different places and put them all into this perfect tour at that point. And then we showed up there and it was none of those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that last part brought it home. It is a cool thing to know you can get a little something special.
Yeah. All right. What we'll wrap this up. What are some of your favorite memory that we can say on the show that you're going to take back with you and say this was super special?
All right. You first.
Me first on the spot. Well, I thought Churchill Downs was a lot of fun. And that's just the only reason that's an outlier is because it wasn't a distillery. That was my first time at a horse track. And so, I knew nothing. And so I'm asking the guy like, hey, if you were going to bet, what would you bet on? And then by race 3, I'm a professional,
Sure.
I got this.
Oh yeah. That's how I take $2 on the,
I'll take 30 cents on horse 3.
Trifecta right here.
I bet the exacto.
Yeah. What is the exacto? I still don't know. So that was cool. And the favorite, I thought, so one of the houses we stayed at, we first pulled up, it almost seemed, and we made the comment of it almost seemed like kind of like maybe a red flag sort of sketchy neighborhood. And we were kind of had our heads on the swivel, when we first got there. And by the time we left, we're walking down the sidewalk waving to people like, what's up, man?
Good to see you, Tony. Yeah.
I know this has nothing to do with bourbon or anything, but with you guys being there, I fell in love with the place that we were at. I thought it was, I don't know, it was just a really good time. And it's hard to pick one thing, but truly for me, the fellowship and just spending time with you guys and how much we laughed and joked and just, it was really good. I really appreciate it.
Nice.
I think the overall fellowship, it's not about the bourbon trail. To some degree it is, but it's the fellowship, the great synergy with the guys, 6 of us. And again, I've said this before, you knocked it out of the park with this trip. But the fellowship, the right mix of guys, and we knew what the expectations were. It wasn't a drink fest.
Yeah.
It was just camaraderie, the fellowship, enjoying bourbon, learning about bourbon. So that was my takeaway.
Cool. Just a couple more from Chris. His was walking into Buffalo Trace for the first time, getting a bottle of Weller 107 as a gift. Some of these I'm not allowed to read. Barrel tasting at Jim Beam, the Mint Julep at Churchill Downs, and bro time with the best people in the world. Ashton brings in hand dipping the Maker's Mark bottle and personalizing the Jim Beam bottle were his favorites, and of course hanging out. Mojo?
All right. I think kind of take a little bit from everybody. You take 6 guys. Each guy's come from different backgrounds, different life experiences, different personalities, different current walks and trajectories in life. It's a hard thing to mix that people. You know what I'm saying? Because in a general setting, like honestly, none of us would hang out. We all run in different crowds. Tim's a cyclist, ex in the banking community. Jonathan's, in construction, college boy. Look, he dresses like a frat kid. Still, he's getting married. I mean, you have me who's 42 years old who looks like I need to probably be locked up in jail for, doing 7 to 10 for future killings or something. So in J2, who's just the sweetest guy in the world. I mean, you have so many different mixes and all of a sudden we come together and we actually vibed. So
from 57 years old, which is what I am, to I think we had a 28-year-old.
Yeah, Ashton's 28.
Yeah, Ashton 20. So 28 to 57, we have a span there, of almost 30 years. So but just the personalities alone, you could have people all together, but you take that many different personalities and mix them together. And I admit, I've told these guys I apologize if my personality offended, because I know you get passionate, and I'm very passionate about things. And I have to apologize to people sometimes because if you ever come across a subject you feel passionate about, you develop into that.
I think on the front porch that one evening I need to do the massive apology, and I do apologize about that. But keep going.
Tim, you're fine. In this group right here, you never have to apologize. But my favorite part, and I just want to kind of I love to give a little bit of pretext. My favorite part was that front porch because. You had some concerns before we even got there. You voiced to me that maybe you accidentally booked the wrong place for the Airbnb because this house seemed to be in a potentially up-and-coming neighborhood, but it was still in the kind of the outskirts of the sketchy area.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had some concern. And when we pulled up, it was a unique experience. Sure. I mean, you had this house, which the homeowner, the Airbnb host, did a spectacular job of upfitting.
Sure. Yeah.
For what she had. I mean, it was nice. Like I would stay there again and not think twice about it. But we're down in this downtown urban area, which has a lot of converted older homes, which are now multifamily homes. You had boarding houses, or you've had houses or property that were probably had a antebellum style home on it that had now been bulldozed and now had like maybe a 6-unit apartment complex on it. So there was a lot of residents in this area. So, but we found this unique window, this unique opportunity to sit on the front porch, which no one does anymore, and just view the neighborhood. I mean, and this was the most unique neighborhood I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, it was incredible.
From ladies of ill repute to a rooster.
Yeah.
I don't know how a rooster comes into play.
A rooster of ill repute.
It's a rooster of the night. But no, it was just the most unique experience. But besides that, just sitting out there and drinking and having a cocktail. And I'm not talking about drinking like to get hammered, but just sitting there. We sat out in the morning. I mean, I think in the mornings we sat out for one time. Me and Tim sat out there with Chris for 3 hours and drank coffee.
Yeah, I think we got out there at like 5:30 a.m.
Something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we all got out
We had
there.
coffee, and it was fellowship.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best experiences I've had in a long time.
I think you and I sat out there for an hour without even looking at each other because Tim hates me. I'm just kidding. But we sat out there and in just peace and solitude.
Yeah.
It was a nice break. And I think that's my favorite part of this whole trip was just sitting out there, getting to know different guys that, like Jonathan. Jonathan and I go to church. I mean, all of us go to church together. But just not having an opportunity to go, hey, Jonathan, how you doing? Would you like to go out and hang out for a minute? Because that's what I want to seem like. It's that weirdo who wants to lure you in and then bury you under the floorboards.
Sure.
I mean, you don't want to be that weirdo. So this was a unique opportunity for us to bond together. And I mean, from the bottom of my heart, buddy, I appreciate you. I love you for putting this together. I love the opportunity that we got to hang, and you had mad driving skills. I didn't think you had it in you.
Super smooth.
The old Bourbon Force One.
Yeah. You can do it. Yeah.
I walked up to JT. I live across the street from JT, diagonally, and I walked up and with my suitcase to hop on board, and I walked up to the vessel. And it's like, this is like a 6-passenger Yukon
XL
mega van. And it's like, I looked at his wife, Jess. I said, can I drop the F-bomb this early in the morning? Because I was going like, holy, and I didn't say it, but it's like, holy smokes, are we traveling in this?
Yeah.
Vehicle?
Yep.
She said, indeed you are.
Yep.
Indeed.
Indeed. And you great job.
Thank you. I said this on the trip. I love bourbon and it's fantastic, but the number one thing for me is just the fellowship and the hanging out. Yeah. And the laughs and the memories that we're going to take from that trip, it'll never. I hope that they never fade.
I don't think so.
I hope that on my deathbed you come up to me and say, life is short, let's have fun.
Absolutely. I will. I'll whisper it in your ear hole.
Sure.
But all I know is I'd like to announce our 2021 tour, which is Biggun's Irish Whiskey Tour. He'll be planning that one too.
I will take you up on 2021. We'll do it. We'll do it on 2021.
Yeah, I'm not gonna place any bets on that, but because you'll be busy doing Biggun's Bourbon Tour for all our listeners.
I'll let Tim run that one home.
All right. Well,
he said no. It'll be a scientific trip.
You're getting ready to be a busy guy.
Yeah, I have a feeling.
All right. So that's our show. We appreciate you guys tuning in. If you have any questions, shoot us an email at sfpradio@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening. As always, you can find us on our Facebook page at Southern Fried Philosophy. You can find us on our website at southernfriedphilosophy.com. Go to our Twitters and Instagram, which I never use because I really don't understand them, at SFP Radio. You can also find us on any of your favorite podcast players, Buzzsprout, iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. Just go there, put in Southern Fried Philosophy. Actually, you probably can go to Alexa and go, hey, Alexa, which I'm tripping out all the Alexa devices right now. Sure. Hey, Alexa, play Southern Fried Philosophy. And there you go. So just go to those, subscribe, give us a review, a like. Also, in honor of my heart donor, I told my donor's mother that I would promote life or organ awareness, organ donation. So make sure if you haven't, when next time you go to the DMV, just fill out your organ donation card. Check in with your local organ donation chapters, and just remember the hashtag Donate Life.
Again, want to say thank you guys for showing up. You can also hear us at States Vegas Radio, 6 o'clock on Friday and 6 o'clock on Monday, 4 o'clock on Friday. You can check us out there. And as always, keep looking up. Hashtag Life is Short. Let's have fun. Thanks again for tuning in. This is the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast.